I think it's inspiring for people to know what can be accomplished. And, we're learning that in hearing about your path.
Yeah, I mean,
where did you start?
Yeah, I was going to say, I've taken a lot of right and left turns. So I actually started in finance and, after undergrad and worked in finance for a couple of years, did the customary go back to business school. And I think it was definitely in business school where I was like, I don't know if this is my jam. So kind of made a right turn or a left turn, I don't know which way you see it, to marketing in the middle of school and came out and actually worked for an agency, Draft Worldwide in Chicago.
Okay.
And, this is going to predate me a lot, but, this is way before social media or anything else. And the firm bought a company called KBA Marketing, which did experiential marketing. So that was like when you were on the street, trying to get people to do things and really raise awareness for brands.
Right.
So I remember my first client was Nike, and we did this thing called the Nike Fun Police, where we would go up to people and be like, "You're wearing Adidas, write you a ticket," and then give you like a coupon to shop at Nike. So this was kind of like influencer marketing and all that kind of stuff before influencers. In another example, I opened the Delano Hotel and launched the Escalade in Miami, and we had people like Carmen Electra and LL Cool J who were really cool back then. They're so cool now,
right.
But they were really cool back then in the cars. So again, it was kind of influencer marketing before Instagram, because this was 1997,
right-ish.
Yeah. So that I think made me see that partnerships were important, and they also leveraged brands and gave them a real ability to scale beyond their own customer base. Marrying the Delano and Cadillac was something that no one ever thought of that. But suddenly, when you pulled up to the Delano, you had a Cadillac, and LL was like, I need this car. And I'm like, there's something here.
Right.
So after that, I actually went on to move to New York, worked at Gotham magazine with Jason Ben, launched that. And the same, it was just a lot of partnerships and how do you leverage to make each brand bigger? And from there, I got a call from the New York Times and kind of went back to my roots a little bit, because I worked in due diligence. I worked in strat planning. Okay. So I did a lot of diligence for Thursday Styles, T Magazine, which didn't exist then, but, we did all the diligence behind it and then launched it with Stephanie Horton.
Incredible.
So a lot of great experiences there, and then moved on to Vogue. And actually my job there was to put some rigor behind the CFDA Book Fashion Fund and the Met. How do we monetize it, as well as how does a magazine get more non-endemic advertisers, so non-fashion. So,
okay.
The automotive advertisers and the liquor advertisers, more the Vanity Fair crew, which was my expertise because I'd come from a company that did a lot of automotive advertising. I was able to create a few things there, including the Vogue 100,
wow,
which still exists today. And again, I think it was maybe creating something before its time, because my whole intent with that was around 2008 when everything crashed, right?
Right.
And people wanted, a lot of our advertisers, how do we get people in stores? And I think everyone was tired of just being invited to an event for no reason. So I had a friend host an event at her home with the clothes in Dallas. And it was the best thing ever. Everyone's like, this is a great environment. I'm like, oh, what if I had more of my friends host events? And she had amazing artwork. So people were coming for different reasons. So start off with 10 women, I think in 5 cities, all my friends. And it started working out really well. All of these retailers are like, how do we do the next one? So literally I ended up doing 5 people in 5 markets. Each of them recommended people. And by the next 7 months, I had 100 people. And, we were like, what should we call it? I'm like, Vogue 100. And that was the first iteration of it. And yeah, we started doing it. It started expanding. So companies like Neiman Marcus started using the ladies to see do you think we have the right things? Chanel would be sending them face creams before they launched it. So it really was kind of that, again, influencer group before, there were real, influencers as we see them today. So it stayed there for a while, got recruited by Shopbop.
And how long were you at Vogue?
I was at Vogue almost 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So
receipts, like I said.
Yeah. Yeah. So and I loved it there. I mean, I had a great boss in Tom Florio.
We love Tom Florio.
Yeah, we love Tom Florio. Learned a lot, learned a lot there. I think that's where I actually grew up and kind of got some real business chops. Yeah. And, I think Anna too, you just learn to be direct, to be decisive, to make decisions quickly. And I think all of that like is really inherent in how I manage and do business today. So stayed there. Actually, it was funny. Amazon was sponsoring the Met, and I was writing the proposal for them. And
The Met Ball.
The Met Ball,
Right.
yes.
The Met Ball.
Met Ball. And they were like, we want all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, you've never worked with the
Right.
magazine. And so, was kind of rewriting it. And they were like, oh, would you be interested in a job here? And at that time, like, again, loved Vogue. They were very good to me, but I think it was just time to learn something new.
After 7 years, yeah.
Yeah.
7-year itch.
Exactly. And, e-commerce was coming on the horizon. This is now 2011. And I'm like, I think, I need to learn. So where else do you learn about e-commerce than Amazon? It's like your MBA in e-commerce as well as digital marketing.
Right.
So went there. And that was pivotal to me because there, it was Shop Op, and I was basically the marketing director, and they were trying to launch internationally. So there was no playbook,
No precedent.
There was no precedence.
And it's 2011.
Yeah, it's 2011. And they were like, we want to launch in China. So myself and the head of international, Karen Goyer at the time, we like literally get on a plane to China to figure out, how do we do business here?
And no Instagram, really.
No, Instagram had just launched in 2010. So
Right.
there's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing. So literally we're figuring out, like, do we land servers here? Like how do we market? Okay, they don't use Google, it's Baidu. How do we performance market if you're not,
Right.
buying keywords here? Like, how do we do? So it was literally like figuring out the business soup to nuts. And we replicated that same process in Russia and the Middle East. So for me, it was like my first real opportunity to go outside of the US and really learn, like, you have to learn culture. You have to learn business skills. You have to learn personal skills. Like, in some places you need to hold the business card with 2 hands and wait until they take it. Like, there's
Right.
so many nuances in how people do business and like what's going to make you successful, in every single market.
Yeah.
So I think that was a big learning for me and being able to have a wider breadth to offer. And it came in handy because I got a call from, actually, Condé Nast had invested in Farfetch, this company called Farfetch that nobody had heard of. And I got a call to actually run the US. And, I went on the interview, like, a couple of interviews, and they realized I had all this international experience. And they were like, oh, we actually have a CMO position open, but it's in London. And I'm like, well, I have no intention of moving to London. So,
Because you're in New York at this time.
I'm in New York at this time. And I don't know, I had no intention of moving. I really didn't. So I was like, thank you very much. Goodbye.
5 years later.
5 years later, I lived there for 6 years. But no, it was literally Jose. Jose, who founded Farfetch, was in the States the next 2 weeks. And they're like, we just want you to speak to our founder and, make your decision. And literally within, 20 minutes speaking to Jose, I was packing my bags.
Because he's the loveliest person.
I mean, he's the loveliest person, but he's also such a visionary.
Wow.
And you just want to be a part of the dream. I'm like,
Right.
I don't even know if this sounds viable or if this is going to work, but I'm doing this,
Right.
And at that point, it was a big chance to take, right? This is an unknown site. It's an unknown process. At that point, there were no marketplaces.
Right.
So this is a very new way to shop. The tech is, kind of like shaky at best. There's a lot of risks here. Needless to say, in the next 2 months, I packed my bag and moved to London,
Right.
where was my home for the next 5 years.
Amazing.
And that was amazing. We launched 9 markets. So I launched Tokyo, I launched Shanghai, we launched Russia and Moscow, we launched the Middle East, we opened another office in LA, we did, South America. So that for me was, again, like just a really global.
But you had been prepared for it.
Yeah, but I was prepared for it. So,
right woman for the job.
Exactly. And I knew what to ask for and do at that point. So, working with the COO at the time, because it was a small team, when I went there. So it was like maybe five of us in the C team, and below.
You guys were
and we were like
from day one.
Engine. Yeah. It was like, an engine. And we were just like, a lot of the times we didn't know what we were doing, but somehow it always worked out.
Right.
But a great opportunity, but then it was time for me to move back home. My parents. My parents are older. And, I was just like, I've been here a long time. Yeah. It was time to come back. So came back and worked with Alex Wang for a couple of years, who I love. He just did his first show in 4 years a couple of days ago, which was amazing. I've
Yes,
literally
I absolutely
texted
heard
him
about
like,
it.
I need this.
I saw you before you went to the show.
Yeah. So it was an amazing show, but, went to Alex. And again, for me, it was another pivotal moment because, I had never really been over operations, licensing, partnerships.
Okay, so you were CMO at
So
Farfetch,
CMO
and
now I'm
you're...
Chief Strategy Officer.
Oh my, okay.
So now I've like a little bit raised the bar.
Globally.
So yeah, globally.
Okay.
So it's beyond marketing. I am in charge of sales globally, all kind of the operational parts
bottom line
of
of
it,
the
bottom line of the
business.
business, partnerships. Like basically my job is how do we make money?
Right.
And which should be our strategy go forward. And we were also at that time working on a fundraise. So that was all great to me because I'm like, I've never had an exit. I've never really been the person to put the deck together for the company. It was a bit of a restructure on the sales side. So that was interesting, reorganizing how the global sales process worked. And then really getting in there and learning product and counter sourcing and like how to be efficient and, really how to run a business and set it up for scale and success. Like, I did a eyewear license. We started an underwear, and stuff that's still going on today and lots of great partnerships.
Lots of cool events.
Yeah, lots of cool events.
Well,
with Alex,
cool celebrities.
Yeah, exactly. And what would you expect? Like nothing less with Alex. But again, I think each job set me up for the next one.
Yeah.
So, I had, deficiencies to me and like what I was able to offer in my repertoire, and this kind of filled the hole.
Right.
So when Google called, I think I was ready
to
take this on because obviously this is a scale that, I've never worked on, never worked at a company this large.
Right.
Obviously, the job fine, but I think the reach is like, the thing that really attracted me because, after leaving Wang, I was kind of like, I want to do something with impact. And I did in between. I was a CEO of a company on a contract called Hemp Tailor.
Okay.
Which was, it made outerwear out of hemp. So 100%, hemp is the most sustainable product.
Wow.
The most sustainable product. And for me, it was like, I've done all these amazing jobs, but I don't feel like I really made an impact on anything. Like, who have I really helped?
Right.
Help people shop and get a lot of nice stuff. But, I guess as far as legacy in the world, I felt like I needed to do something else. And I think this job gives you the platform to really make an impact, on people. Yes, we're teaching them to shop, but, there's also in Google such an ecosystem of like helping merchants, growing businesses, making sure that the ecosystem's healthy and that, people can shop big and small and they can find Black owned and they can shop nearby. So, I think even though we're helping people buy things, we're also helping impact businesses,
right?
And also bringing them new technology, which to me is amazing.